everybody, my name is Mars. You can call me MG if you would like, and today I've got the Keyleth Antlers out because this is my So You Want to Get into Critical Role in 2025 starter guide, I might call it. I'm not totally sure yet. It's less of a guide and more of just my advice on the matter. So if you have no idea what Critical Role is, then I don't know why you clicked on this video, but welcome anyway. Critical Role is an actual play show slash podcast where, in their own words, a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors sit around and play Dungeons and Dragons. This year is the 10th anniversary. Actually, the day that I'm filming this is the day before their actual 10th anniversary, but it'll be coming out a few days after. So, right around this time, if you're watching this video when it goes up. So I thought it was the perfect time to make this sort of guide because there's so much content that has been put out in the past 10 years. So Critical Role started out as like a little sideshow on the Geek and Sundry YouTube channel before they moved to their own Critical Role branded channel and they became an independent company. And in that time, they've done 3 main Dungeons & Dragons campaigns. They've done countless mini-series and one-shots, some of them related to the main campaigns, some of them related to other things like sponsored deals with different video games coming out and stuff like that. Sometimes they play Dungeons & Dragons in these mini-series and one-shots, sometimes they use other play systems. They've got live shows that they've done, they've put out comic books, novels, there's the Legend of Vox Machina animated series. Eventually there will be the Legend of Mighty Nein animated series, so a whole lot of stuff out there to enjoy. And my credentials on giving you this advice is the fact that I've been watching Critical Role since 2018, so how many years is that? Like more than 6 years at this point? And I love it so much. It's so near and dear to my heart that I want to get everyone into it if I can. So that's what we are here to do. Now, if my 3-page, very densely packed script for this video is anything to go off of, this might be a bit of a long one, but the basic format of this will be I will talk about a piece of media that Critical Role has put out, and then the pros and cons of if you were to start there on your Critical Role journey. So, very straightforward, so let's just get into it. So first up we have where it all began with the first campaign, the adventures of the adventuring group called Vox Machina. Keyleth, my favorite character, is a member of Vox Machina, and this you would think would be the best place to start, but there are some issues attached to it. So first of all, this kind of starts in the middle of the story because this originally was a home game, just a bunch of friends playing D&D together to hang out, and then it was transitioned into a show for everyone on the internet to watch when they joined Geek and Sundry. So there is like stuff that you miss out on the beginning. You're kind of just plopped right down with no introduction to what's going on. The first handful of episodes, maybe even more than a handful, maybe like the first 20 to 30 episodes, there's not great quality in terms of audio and visual stuff because it was so new and they were trying to figure out what was going on. There's also this guy that was part of it named Orion, and then he left, and there's like a whole bunch of drama involving that, which like you can look into it if you want, but the news is 10 years old at this point, so it's not really important anymore, but that was a whole thing. And you could skip to like several episodes in after he's left and when they fix the audio and visual quality, but then you still have the issue of starting it in the middle of this campaign and not really getting this background information. There is a 20-ish minute video called The Story of Vox Machina that does recap what happened in the home game, so you could watch that first just to get an idea of what was going on and then jump in with episode 1 of campaign 1. There's also probably a bunch of recap videos done by fans like me to tell you what happens in the first several episodes if you do want to skip to when things get a little bit easier to watch. So that's definitely an option. There's also the Vox Machina Origins comics to get the backstories of the player characters, and this has nothing to do with the like actual story itself that they played in the campaign, whether at home or on the show. This has to do with like character backstories for even before that happened, so just to get to know them a little bit better. So while campaign 1 isn't the worst place to start if that is truly where you want to begin, I personally recommend campaign 2 to people who want to jump in with one of the main campaigns but want something maybe a little bit easier to get into. So campaign 2 is this fresh start. We get to meet the characters when they meet each other and see these beginning adventures that they have. There are a few inside jokes that the cast has made by that point because campaign 1 is, I think, 115 episodes, so they spent a long time together and like making all these jokes. Plus, they're just friends and things happen outside of the show, so you could get a little bit confused and things like that, but not too badly, I would say. And there's a clean break between campaigns. Obviously, they take place in the same world. They're set on this planet called Exandria, but they take place on completely different continents. The stories don't overlap at all. They're two separate things, so you don't need to know what happened in campaign 1 in order to get into campaign 2. There is also a series of comic books for the Mighty Nein origins, the Mighty Nein being the adventuring party that campaign 2 follows, so you can get their backstories as well. And then we come to the third campaign, which recently wrapped up just a few weeks ago, although it's more like a month or so at this point. But it is generally regarded in the community as not a great jumping off point to get into Critical Role. It has different vibes from the first two. It's not like a traditional fantasy story, but it might still be your vibe if you're not into like the traditional fantasy aesthetics. It's Personally, I loved it. I thought it was great. A lot of people thought that the vibe shifted maybe a little bit too much, but that's their opinion. This also is very much connected to the first and second campaigns. Character backstories draw from those two campaigns, and then the final arc kind of draws in everything that happened in the past 10 years of the story. So, if you start with campaign 3, just know that there is a lot of context from campaigns 1 and 2 that you are missing out on, so it might not be the best experience for your first campaign. So now that we've gone through the 3 main campaigns, I just want to make a little note about the Legend of Vox Machina animated show. This does follow the story of the first campaign, so if you don't want to watch hundreds and hundreds of hours of the first campaign, you can watch The Legend of Vox Machina and still get the idea of what was going on. I do just want to make sure you know that the canon of it does veer off in later seasons. There are 3 seasons, and the first one follows the campaign pretty well, but then in the second and third, the storyline changes quite a bit. So just to be aware of that if you do watch The Legend of Vox Machina and then like maybe jump into campaign 2 and 3, things are not exactly the same between campaign 1 and the show. If you want something that is a lower commitment than jumping into a several hundred episode campaign, then might I suggest one-shots. There are plenty on the Critical Role YouTube channel to check out. You just have to check on 3 things to make sure you are getting the ones that you would like to. So you want to make sure who's involved, because there is a main cast of characters in Critical Role, but sometimes, especially in one-shots, they will have maybe 2 or 3 people from the main cast and then a handful of like their friends to guest. So you might not be getting the like classic Critical Role experience if it's not the main cast. You also want to check out what system they're using, because like I said, they usually play Dungeons and Dragons, but they don't always. And you also want to check if it is part of the Exandria canon. So if it is something that is tied to one of the main campaigns, maybe not watch that one just yet. But there are definitely ones set in Exandria that don't tie into specific things from the campaigns, and there are also things that don't take place in Exandria at all. For example, maybe not watch Search for Grog if you haven't seen campaign 1. That's just my opinion though. Do whatever you would like. So some of the one-shots that I personally would recommend, because I enjoy them a lot, is The Song of the Lorelei, which is DM'd by Liam O'Brien. The regular DM is Matt Mercer, so this is a bit different. and there are some of the main cast, but also some guest cast. There's also The Night Before Christmas, which is also DM'd by Liam, but there are no guest characters. This is all of the main Critical Role cast. I also really enjoy Call of Cthulhu Shadow of the Crystal Palace. This is DM'd by Taliesin. There are some guest characters and some of the main cast, but the biggest thing to note about this is that they don't play D&D, they are playing Call of Cthulhu, which is a different system. It's a horror RPG that I think is so fun, so maybe check those out if you're interested. And now, moving on from one-shots, we have mini-series. So there are 3 mini-series that I want to talk to you guys about. There's Exandria Unlimited, Candela Obscura, and the Daggerheart trilogy. So we are going to start off with Exandria Unlimited. So Exandria Unlimited is actually several mini-series that are all kind of lumped together under the umbrella of EXU, as it is known when you shorten it. And this was a way for Matt Mercer to kind of hand off the reins of Exandria to other people to explore different facets of it outside of the main campaigns. So they are DM'd/GM'd depending on your preference. DM stands for Dungeon Master, GM stands for Game Master. You can use them pretty much interchangeably. So there are different DMs for these mini-series and different players involved, but they do take place in the main world of the campaigns. So first you just have EXU Prime, which is the original Exandria Unlimited that doesn't have a little like tagline to it, and then it had a sequel of 2 episodes called EXU Kaimal. The DM for this is Abria Iyengar, and this kind of acts as a prologue to Campaign 3. A few of the characters that you meet in the original EXU end up becoming main players in the 3rd campaign, so it's a nice way to get to know them a little bit, and I think it's really fun. Then you have Exandria Unlimited Calamity, which was DM'd by Brennan Lee Mulligan, and this kind of sets up the lore of Exandria, so you get to see the Calamity, as it's called, which was this like kind of apocalyptic situation that happened several hundred years prior to the main campaigns and affects how things work because there was kind of a little bit of an apocalypse going on. And then you have EXU Divergence, which is also DM'd by Brennan Lee Mulligan, and this is the most recent iteration of Exandria Unlimited. I have not yet watched the 4th episode as of filming this, but that is literally on my to-do list for when the video that I'm filming right now is exporting. That's how I'm going to spend my time, and I'm having a wonderful time with it. This literally has been airing over the course of February and March. So it is set at the end of the Calamity, and it's just more lore set up, and it shows this war that has been going on between 2 different factions of the deities, and really shows why Exandria is the way that it is at the time of the main campaigns. So, a little bit of recap of this. Watch EXU Prime before Campaign 3 if you want to get to know the characters a little bit better. And then for Calamity and Divergence, I would recommend watching Calamity first and then Divergence, and these are just to give you a sense of the like lore of the world. Next up we have Candela Obscura, which is the name of a horror tabletop role-playing game that was put out by Darrington Press, which is Critical Role's like publishing imprint. They've put out a lot of different games, so if you do like playing your own games, maybe check them out and see if there's anything that catches your fancy. But technically, for Candela Obscura, there are 4 miniseries of 3 episodes each, and they all follow different characters, but they all take place in the same setting. There's also a bonus live show, so there's 13 episodes total. Not really the best place to start, in my opinion, because it's not set in Exandria, it is not D&D, and it also doesn't have just the main cast. It has a whole bunch of guests, though there are main cast members in all of the different little mini-series. But I mean, if it is your vibe, like it is a great vibe, in my opinion, definitely check it out. And then finally, we have the Daggerheart trilogy. Daggerheart is another tabletop role-playing game put out by Darrington Press. It is a much more generic fantasy vibe, similar to D&D, although the gameplay is very different. There are 3, they're one-shots, but they follow the same cast of characters, so that's why I'm calling it a trilogy, and it involves the main cast showing you how to play this game. Daggerheart is it out yet? Oh, I don't actually know. It's either like it either like just came out or is coming out very very soon. It's something that they've been working on for years, and I think it's really fun. I got to do a little bit of play testing with it, and I'm very excited to see the final product. So I think this would be a good place to like see if you vibe with the main cast as just people, because it is a lot less of a time commitment and you get to see them in their element with the game that they've created. And aside from the like trilogy of it, there is also a Christmas special that's completely separate, and it's got like an 80s vibe to it, and I think it's super duper fun. Next, we are going to talk about the books, because there are so many. So first up, we have Kith and Kin, which is by Marika Nijkamp. This follows Vex'ahlia and Vax'ildan, Vex and Vax for short, as they have this little mini adventure prior to their time with Vox Machina. So this is attached to Campaign 1. It gives some backstory for these two characters. It won't spoil anything for Campaign 1. It might be a little bit confusing if you don't know these two characters, but I really do think that you can read it independently of having seen anything from Critical Role and still enjoy it. Then we have The Nine Eyes of Lucian by Madeleine Roux, and I absolutely 100% do not recommend reading this unless you have seen all of Campaign 2, because it spoils so much. This follows a main antagonist from the campaign, and it's from pre-campaign all the way through to the end. So I reiterate that. Do not read this book if you have not seen Campaign 2. You will not understand what's going on. It will spoil the campaign. Just pick this up when you finish watching it. Next up, we have What Doesn't Break by Cassandra Khaw. This follows a player from Campaign 3, well, player character from Campaign 3, I should say, and it does spoil an early arc of Campaign 1, but it's to give backstory for the Campaign 3 character Laudna that it follows, because her backstory is tied to that arc. So if you've seen the early bits of Campaign 1, or if you've seen Season 1 of The Legend of Vox Machina, because that arc is what Season 1 is, then you can read this without any spoilers. So, not a bad place to start if you're interested in Campaign 3 stuff. Then we have Stories Untold, which I'm getting my copy of literally later today. My boyfriend is picking it up on his way home from work, so I don't have it right now, but I will have it tonight. I'm just gonna put a cover picture up for you anyway. This is the latest release. It came out literally last week, and it is 10 short stories, each one following a different character that Vox Machina meets on their adventures. And I'm assuming it's gonna spoil the campaign because we are following all of these different characters from the campaign. So maybe don't read this until after you've seen Campaign 1 or watched Legend of Vox Machina. I don't know, I haven't read it yet, but I'm so excited to get my hands on it. Then we have two books that are pretty interesting that are not out yet. They are coming out later on this year, and that is Der Katzenprinz, which is a children's fairy tale collection written by Liam O'Brien, one of the main cast members. And then there's also Tusk Love, which is an adult smutty romance. And these are actually two books that exist within the world of Exandria. Like, in Campaign 2, the characters read these books. And so the fact that they're becoming like real world books is so fun. I really love that. And they probably won't spoil anything because they're not like lore things. They're just books in the world. So I'm so excited for those books as well. And finally, last but not least, there is something that I would like to bring up, and that thing is Beacon, which is Critical Role's streaming service that they launched last year. It's got a whole ton of stuff like behind the scenes content, bonus like episodes. I don't know what to call them, but like more campaign stuff and like so much more. And I know this video is meant for people just getting into Critical Role, so you probably won't want to spend money on all of this content if you don't even know if you like it, but I just wanted to mention it, that is a thing that exists, that's out there. So if you watch this video and decide where to get into Critical Role and you find that you really enjoy it, there's also Beacon if you want even more stuff. And with that, we have come to the end of this video. If you've watched this and you already are a fan of Critical Role, let me know your thoughts. on where you would recommend people to start with getting into this whole thing. If you're interested in getting into Critical Role, let me know where you're going to start, because I would love to know. It's so near and dear to my heart. So anyone who ever wants to talk about Critical Role, hit me up. But we have now come to the end of the video, so if you've enjoyed it, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel for more content, and to end things the way they do on Critical Role, I will just ask, is it Thursday yet?